The president's next stop today will be Illinois. He's trying to sell his trade policies to the people they might be hurting the most. New NBC News Marist polling shows Trump's job rating in Michigan, Minnesota, and Wisconsin is now hovering around 36 and 38%. And when asked if he deserves to be reelected, only 28 to 31% say yes. Trump won Michigan and Wisconsin in 2016 by less than a point each. Perhaps it is these numbers that have forced Donald Trump to pull back on his trade war. First, he announced a $12 billion plan to bail out farmers. Then he struck a deal with the EU to put the brewing trade war on hold, sealing it with a literal kiss. But for Trump country, is the damage already done? Cornell Belcher is a progressive pollster and the founder of Brilliant Corners Research. He's also an MSNBC political analyst. And Chris Wilson is a GOP pollster and the CEO of WPA Intelligence. He's also a former executive director of the Texas Republican Party. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here. Chris, Donald Trump won the upper Midwest. He broke through that blue wall. But he didn't totally shatter the wall. He won by a very small margin. These policies that he's putting in place, is he threatening to lose that margin, even if only a handful of people don't like him?
Well, I think the jury's still out on that. But one of the reasons why Donald Trump was able to win those areas, as you point out in 2016, is by speaking to a group of people that, frankly, I thought you did a good job chronicling and unbelievable, that had been left behind. I mean, there'd been a group that were both Republicans and Democrats, quite frankly, had failed to speak to effectively. And what Donald Trump was able to do, he was able to, while he may have been losing the upper educated, upper income, more suburban areas, he was able to flip a lot of these rural blue collar areas. And you've got to give him credit for that. Now, your point is exactly dead on, is what happens with this trade war. Is he able to have more press conferences like yesterday where he can kind of declare victory and show, hey, look, we're being effective? Or do we move into a more of a prolonged battle and we see prices go up and unemployment start to be affected by it? And we're too early to tell. We're kind of in the first quarter of a football game there and still waiting to see what happens as we get further down the game.
Well, look at this poll. Does Donald Trump deserve to be reelected? This is the NBC News new polling. Michigan, 28% say he deserves reelection. Only 28%. 62% want to give another person a chance. Minnesota, 30%. He does deserve re-election. Only 30%. Wisconsin, 31%. Those numbers must not be looking very good for him, Chris. And I wonder, the voters that are out there that I tried to chronicle in my book, Unbelievable, the ones who felt left behind, are they going to be more convinced by Donald Trump declaring something to be the case, or are they going to be more convinced by what is actually happening? The business that is lost, the jobs that are not created, the wages that have not gone up as much as he said they would, or the taxes that are not giving them as much relief as he claimed they would?
Well, we have a lot of leading indicators to look at it. I think you can look at the beauty of 2018 is in these midterms, there's a lot of Senate races in those states that have those types of voters in them. You've got North Dakota, you've got Montana, you've got Wisconsin, you've got Pennsylvania, you have Ohio. And it'll be really fascinating, Florida, to look at what happens in those races. Are Republicans able to pick up some of those Democrat-held seats despite numbers right now for, as you point out, those numbers right out come on the heels of Helsinki, so they're probably not the best time to be polling for the president. But having said that, as we get closer to the election, I mean, what is it that motivates those rural Trump country voters? They turn out like they did in 2016, or do they stay home? If they stay home, Republicans are going to lose those seats. If they could turn out, then Republicans are going to pick up seats in the Senate. And that'll give us a much better indicator of what we have to look forward to in 2020 than any polling that exists in July.
Cornell, are Democrats going to be seizing on the Republicans calling the $12 billion to farmers a bailout, calling it akin to socialism? Are Democrats going to seize on that and try and campaign on it, or is that a tough issue for Democrats?
Well, a couple of things. Let me level set here. That's not Trump country, right? Trump won those states by a margin, by a number that, quite frankly, we would see in the past would be an absolute losing number. He, in fact, didn't far overperform what Mitt Romney did in 2012 when losing those things. So it's problematic for Trump because he actually needs to grow support, right? He's less than a majority in those states. He's actually grow support there, and he's not, in fact, growing support there. He's shrinking it, right? And the terrorists certainly don't help when you have a plurality of voters in the country think that terrorists hurt the economy more than it helps. And that's even a larger plurality by 28 points. In the Midwest, you have voters thinking that tariffs hurt more than it helps. So from an economic standpoint, it certainly isn't helpful. But when you get down to numbers like 28% reelect, there's something going on that's simply not about economic angst. And that battlefield is going to be, quite frankly, not so much in rural America, but in suburban America, where you see so many of the battleground districts in this upcoming midterm are, in fact, suburban districts. And when you look at suburban women opening up NPR poll, opening up a 20-point generic Democratic advantage there, that's where all this problem really hits home for Republicans, is in these suburban districts with these suburban, better educated women who are turning away from Trump and Republicans. And it's not all about economic angst. There's something more values and visceral going on, and they're distaste of what's going on in Washington.
Do you think Democrats are going to have enough with those voters to outweigh the voters that are going to take another chance on Donald Trump, the ones that maybe did have that economic angst?
That's a very good question. I think too many Democrats think not being Trump is a winning campaign strategy, is a winning message. I disagree, right? And I think when you look at sort of how we picked up more voters in 2008 and 2012, I worked for the Obama campaigns. It was about giving them something to vote for. Yeah. I think if Democrats give them something aspirational to vote for, especially suburban women, I think we will move them.
Cornell Belcher, Chris Wilson, thank you and welcome to the program. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Katie.